Going to take up Senator Gooch is not able to be with us today. He had to be home in the district, and as I've done with Senator Mullis, we will I'll allow him to not to have to come over, and so Chairman Burns is going to carry SB 70 in the House. So at this time, we'll recognize Chairman Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I'm sure we won't do as near as good. Most of you know Josh Waller, who works with the department. Obviously, he carried the bill in the Senate. Let's see if he can do the same in the House. But we appreciate the time to be here. And, Mr. Chairman, I think we're working with, just to be sure, LC 390392S.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. You have a sheet on your desk. I know some of you have been looking at the bill as you've heard about it and as it's made its way over to our side. But let me just give you the basic outline. And if we have some questions, Josh and I will do our best to explain any parts of the bill. Basically, we all know and have heard that GDOT does a pretty good job of delivering projects, but they're only as good as the tools that we allow them to utilize in delivering those projects. And what we intend to do here is to give them another tool that will allow them to be efficient with the spending of our transportation dollars, as limited they are. And I would thank the chairman of this committee, Chairman Roberts, for working with this concept over the summer. It's been a process of working with the different members of this industry as we seek to deliver, as they seek to deliver, and make good use of the public dollars. That's what this bill's about. And Chairman, I appreciate you working with all the sides and making sure everyone was heard, and everyone has been heard on this bill.
Thank you.
Basically, I'll use some of the bullets that you have in front of you, but design bill allows GDOT to partner further with the private sector for both design, delivery of projects, design bill, best value. I think that's something we all look for in our private businesses. It's not certainly what things cost or a big consideration, but we may want to make sure we get the biggest bang for our buck and the best value for our dollars. And it allows the department to balance both innovation, cost savings to produce the best product at the lowest cost for the citizens of this state. As I told you, that the chairman has worked very diligently to make sure that SB 70 is a consensus bill from all the folks that are involved and will be involved in the delivery of transportation projects. Another tool in the toolkit. We know we need products delivered faster. I'm always concerned about that as I speak to my constituents, and as I travel this state, we want to make sure we deliver them on time and up to speed. Traditional contractors, and one of the things that was important to me is we seek to bring the IT companies' new technology systems into our transportation infrastructures. We make the best use we can of infrastructure that we have and make it more efficient. This part of the bill that will allow them to be more efficient, be included in the process even to a higher degree than they have in the past, to make sure we are very efficient and on target there. 41 other states allow design build best value. When we are endorsed, the process is endorsed by different agencies in the state. Price and quality considerations are an important part of what we're going to talk about. SB 70 streamlines the process of a very, very complex process that we utilize in this state and other states to deliver transportation projects. It helps reduce those delays in project delivery by incorporating just a little different twist to where we employ the private sector to perform a lot of the duties that have come out of DOT or that have been priced out separately. We're bringing all of them together to make sure we get the best product at the best price and the fastest possible time without sacrificing quality. SB 70 preserves the current 50% cap on design build projects. Nothing in this historic actual levels really approach that cap. It's been very low, and Josh can, if you're interested, Josh can give us a percentage. That has not reached anywhere in the past in our history anywhere near 50%. It's very low but it's a tool that we need to continue the process we have over at GDOT, working for our citizens of the state. Large, small contractors, we know that are behind this bill. They support it, and we believe it will be fair and equitable to all concerned. Everybody can, whether they're the prime or whether they're the sub, they can be involved in this design build process, and believe it will be good for employment and for industry in our state. At that, Mr. Chairman, we can talk about the specifics of the language if the committee so desires, or you so desire, Mr. Chairman. We'll leave that up to you, unless Josh has something he would like to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and and I also want to thank you as well for bringing this to the forefront and working on it too. I know you've put a lot of time in it, and I appreciate your leadership on this issue as well. Who we got? Bubba? No, okay. Representative Gardner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm just reading this bill for the first time, but on line 21 and 22 about utility relocation services, that becomes very controversial sometimes in my neighborhood, and I want to make sure that there is, will maintain adequate public input.
Nothing in this, by including that, is not changing any of the public input that's required. That basically is just a clarification to make sure that you understand. The department's take would be that utility relocation services would have already been one aspect already in the language, but that's just as we discussed with emerging technologies, they just wanted clarification to make sure none of this would impact the required public information outreach.
And if I can ask one more kind of stupid question, I guess. So 50% cap is on the total GDOT construction?
It's 50% of the previous year's lettings, and that was changed last year in statute.
And average is?
Well, let me, so in FY08, the cap was 15%, and we had 1.1%. The FY09, it was 1.7. In FY10, it was 3.9%. In FY11, the cap was increased to 30%, and we had 4.39%. And FY12, we had 10.8%. FY13, as when it went up to 50, it went up to 17.3. And as we're looking into fiscal year 14, though, we're looking at about less than 1% doing design builds. So, we've never really came close to the cap.
So this allows you to be more efficient and get projects done more quickly?
It allows you to, in the best value scenario, what it does, it allows you to weigh both your cost, so whatever the lowest bid is, but you add another component for technical improvements, like if someone were able to do 2 lanes instead of add an additional lane, or if they were able to commit to doing it to a shorter timeline, you're able to give them credit so that it helps balance out if their bid price is slightly higher. Ultimately, you're not going to have someone that goes substantially higher because they'll still lose, but you're incorporating other aspects. Because, and part of the impetus for that is because you're transferring that design responsibility to the private sector. You've not pre-designed it. It's not apples to apples anymore.
Thank you.
Representative Deffenbaugh.
Being a freshman, I have a different perspective sometimes here. Can you define consensus bill?
That is, we had the department. There was a Senate study committee on this. We've worked with members of the governor's office. I'm not going to speak for the governor's office, but we've been working with the governor's office and members of this committee and the Senate Transportation Committee on. Last year, there was an attempt made at something similar, and it didn't move forward.
Okay, so excuse me for interrupting, but this is just procedure to get this bill to this place. I mean, it's.
We've been working. I mean, we had worked out because last year the department had concerns about.
I understand now. Thank you. That's
Yeah, we brought them all to the table.
that's what I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure.
There was a lot of different ideas about how to go about it, and we finally said, everybody sit down and let's get it worked out. And this was, at the end of the day, the result. And I appreciate everybody for doing that as well. Chairman Reinders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple questions just to make sure I can wrap my mind around this. Let's get in the weeds a little bit. looking at line 35, request for qualifications. Now, as I read that to mean that the department shall make the decision on the qualifications by rule.
Correct. Oh, correct.
Then, by extension, does that have the potential, not that it would, not now, but 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, 6 months down the road, does that have the potential, if the department is deciding who's qualified and who's not, to perhaps limit the potential competitive bidding?
I would say now we currently do have a process where we do requests for qualifications.
Well, but that's new language. It's underlined.
We currently issue RFQs.
The reason that it's underlined is because we're trying to clarify what's already there.
And we do have an RFQ process. We have that, he said, to clarify, but currently we do RFQs on design build.
Mr. Chairman, I originally start off with 2 or 3 questions, but when I hear answers, it makes me want to ask more. I apologize for that. Well, what is the clarification if it's already there now? Why does the department need to clarify that?
I guess because we're trying to outline the process. If you go down into under 6 and then A, B, and C.
Yeah, we're fixing to go there.
So what you have to do is you set up earlier, we have requests for qualifications, and then it talks about this 2-phase process.
I just don't want it to be manipulated, frankly, and again, that's not an allegation. I just don't want us to put something into law that gives you the determination of who you may lock in or out of being able to potentially bid on something.
Well, and I don't think it would be in the department's interest to lock anybody out from a competitive process.
Okay, but request for qualifications makes me nervous. I get to help draw up the design plans that says who gets to do this, or not design plans, but who gets to do this and who gets to do that.
Well, ultimately, you want to let the private sector know what you're looking for, so that you don't have a situation where you have someone responding who isn't qualified and they've spent a lot of money on a product that ultimately can't win. So they need to understand exactly what we're looking to do and what's going to be required of them, or else they may waste a lot of money.
In the world of marketing, there's objections, and then there's conditions. If I say I'm going to buy your vehicle, but only if it's got blue polka dots, I can eliminate to only people who can sell blue polka dots. That's my point. Let's move on if you don't mind. On line 42, now that you're selected the qualifications and you're looking at the award process, on line 41, starting actually on line 41, you have for any 2-step procurement process. So you've made the list of qualifications, requests for qualifications, and then you said it's a 2-step procurement process, correct?
Correct.
And then on the very next A of that is, provided if the department determines it is in the state's best interest, it may omit this requirement and make it a 1-step process.
It's setting up two possibilities. One is the 2-step process with an RFQ and an RFP. The second is there are certain type projects that are very basic and simple, that, or I shouldn't say simple, but straightforward, where you could actually include what's required of the respondent in the RFP itself, and that cuts out a step for some of these projects so that you're able to deliver them more quickly. In that case, it's also required to just be a low bid. It can't be a best value procurement at that point.
Thank you for that answer. And what I would ask you is, if under those, I would assume those are the exceptions instead of the rule?
It would ultimately depend on the type of projects we're doing by design build. If you're doing a very straightforward project where you're wanting to assign the design responsibility to the private sector, but it's very straightforward, you're not likely to get a lot of innovation, there's not a lot of outside-the-box thinking, then you would use this process to do more quickly. And if you identified a bunch of projects, you may have that. And if not, it's looking more likely at the 2-step process.
I'm about to wrap up, Mr. Chairman, but the way it's written to me is we want 2 steps unless we just decide we only need 1. And I would prefer, if I'm going to give you that much wiggle room, and I understand we want to get the projects out faster, we want to get them out cheaper, but again, I would personally prefer if the general rule you feel so strongly about that you got to have 2, to me, for my peace of mind, I would prefer for you to identify under which cases you might only want 1, instead of making it so broad that if we choose to, we can look the other way and just go, you know what, We say two, but really we only need one on this one. That's pretty broad.
Let me, and the one response that I'd give to that is because you built into the one-phase process low bid, you're anticipating almost something very similar to your design bid build, where it's a very simple, almost apples to apples comparison. And the reason then you come out and say the two phases, we're acknowledging that there are certain type of projects where there's a level of innovation that we can't think outside the box, that we want to think outside the box, we want to bring it in, so we want, but because you're assigning that much responsibility to the private sector to think through this and develop it, you want to make sure that the people you're bringing to the table have those qualifications, and it's a little bit more in-depth evaluation. That's why you would have the RFQ.
Okay, and finally, what I would say then is instead of looking like you got to go through a two-step unless we only want you to go through a one-step, there's a part of me that says, why don't you just say request for qualifications, and then we decide whatever process we want. What's even the purpose of the two-step if you've got the wiggle room to go to one-step?
Because it defines...
If you want that leeway, I'll give it to you.
Well, and because it's defined the fact that your two-step is your best value, and then your one-step is referring back to just the traditional low bid. That's the reason that they're split out like that, because you're having to define two different processes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Sessler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate you bringing the bill. I'm going to ask some questions. They're kind of leading questions, but they kind of get toward where I think we're going. Design services, all the design phase services before construction. Do we normally procure those based on qualifications or based on cost? Qualifications.
Qualifications.
Yeah. I mean, when we think about the total dollar impact on a design build project, I mean, a large portion of it, of course, is over on the construction side. But the side that's going to really determine the success of the project in many cases is the design, the way it all fits in and ties into the system. So, we're qualification based on that. Some of the larger projects, some of the big expensive to propose on projects. How much cost is involved in proposing on a large design build project?
Let me ask, what would you say, ballpark? A few million?
For a mega project, you could be talking about up to $10 million for proposal development.
Betcha. Getting consultants together and building the team and all the overhead costs, candidly, that those that propose in the projects incur. Now, if you get a mega project, there could be a number of people that come in and propose on this. I'm sensitive. I'm in the. I don't do anything with roads for purposes of full disclosure. I work for an architect. We do small buildings. But when you think about the procurement costs and the proposal costs to propose on something, we had to spend $15,000 to propose fairly recently for a small government building that we're competing with 10 or 15 other people on. Now, incurring $15,000 as a small company is a big nut to swallow when you don't even know if you're even close. I mean, we didn't know coming into this process if we're on the short list or if we're just one of 20. I will tell you, we as a state, isn't it true, pay for all the cost in the sector. And if we've got people who are proposing to the state of Georgia who are spending $4, $5, $6, $10 million in proposal efforts to get work, of whom just a very few are even going to be viable because they don't have the qualifications, don't have the experience, they can't give us the confidence they can deliver the project. We're projecting those costs out to the private sector, to our businesses, in ways. There are good businesses that might say, you know what, I'm not going to even try this because I'm going to have to spend $10 million to even see if I'm on the short list to even have a chance to get this. Design build projects, isn't it true? You've got to fold in permitting, the federal regulations. You've got to fold in design. You've got to fold in all the constructability and the kind of the utility integration. It is a complex process. You can't bid that on pure cost until more information's pulled together. I would submit, that this best value approach is what the federal government learned years ago for big projects had to happen, because you can't come in on cost on a design-build project and be cost only, and allow the design phase services, the permitting, all the things that make the project fold in with a network well. You can't be price competitive on that piece because you pay on the back end from projects that aren't delivered on time and things that fall apart and don't work. So I'm of the belief, and I appreciate you bringing this, that you cannot deliver big, complex projects without the ability to have folks who are interested to come in, put a reasonable investment in place, figure out who has delivered in the state, who we can whittle down to 2 or 3 or 4 potential offerers, so that they can really invest the dollars and really invest the time to really show us what they can do, so we can make a good decision. I think this is moving in the right direction. I don't build roads. I never have. I'm not a country mile from this industry, but I do work in the construction and design industry, and I think this is clearly a step in the right direction.
Thank you for the insight.
Could you give me a definition of a country mile?
Well, I'm told the gentleman can clear a country mile in about 30 seconds, about down where you live.
Yeah, that's right. You're close to it. Just having fun. Any other questions? Anyone else wishing to speak on this legislation? Chair hearing none at this time, I will entertain a motion. Have a motion and a second do pass. Any further discussion? Chair hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right. We'll move it on.
Thank you all for those questions. That helped. And I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it. All right. The next bill is House Bill 218. Y'all have seen this bill already this year? Twice now. Once in the housekeeping bill, and then in the bill I brought before you last week, and then on the floor on the 30th day, I think it was, or the 29th day. This is a companion bill that was dropped on the other side, and dealing with emergency tow permits. You know, we've been over and debated this and discussed it many times. I'll be glad to answer any other questions that you might have, but I think we've pretty much exhausted all of them. So are there any questions? Chair hearing none. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? All right. Chairman Burns, let it be known that he voted no. No. Okay. All right. Sir? Yeah, I know. That won't happen again. That being said, yes, 70 may not have a do pass recommendation now. No. In all seriousness, we will probably have one more meeting unless something else comes up, probably sometime next week, to basically, as most of you know that's been on this committee before, we'll take all of our road namings and we'll put them in the Senate bill. They do the same thing on that side as well, just to make sure that they get across. God forbid something happen that one of them don't make it. And we also have one or two more that just realized that they hadn't dropped theirs and needed to get it done, so we will add those in and incorporate those in. But at this time, we stand adjourned. Thank y'all.